Ellenberger. I'm a program director at the State Arts Council, if we have not met yet, and joined by Laura Weiss, my colleague and co-program director for the GFO application as well. We're going to go through a slide deck today to take us through the application and offer some time for some questions towards the end. But to kickstart, we'll go through a couple of grounding documents to get us started. So as a reminder, please keep yourself on mute until you're ready to speak. There'll be some time for some casual discussion and questions, so we'll just wait until that time for speaking. Please don't share your screen. Laura's doing that today. If you'd like a way to jot down notes, that's perfectly fine, but we're also recording today's session, so you'll have that as a resource along with the slide decks, which we can share. But if you come up with a question along the way today, that would be a good thing to jot that down. And we're going to hold the meeting to the established time, which is 1 hour, so we will wrap things up by 1 o'clock today. And just a couple of reference shots of Google Meet if you're not super familiar. At the bottom of your dashboard, if you scroll down, there's most of your controls are in the bottom center. So bottom center left, you'll see a microphone button. That's to mute yourself or take yourself off of mute. There's also the video button right next to that. There's closed captioning as you make your way towards the center. There's a raise hand feature, which you're welcome to use today. We have quite a few folks on today's call, so that would be really helpful if you do have a question to use that raise hand feature. The shared screen button is right next to that. There's 3 little dots in case you want to change the formatting or have some issues with your audio or other tech things. Normally you can figure out in that settings section, which are the 3 little dots. Additionally, there's the red telephone receiver button. That's the way to end the call. If you hit that by mistake, that's okay. You can just jump back on the link again to join us where we're at. If you then move your eyes to the bottom right, there's a couple other features. Just note that there's the comment box feature, which is the square with the little lines in it, or if you have it up, it might be filled in blue. But please feel free to use the chat today. We will go ahead and answer questions or elevate any questions or comments within the chat if need be. Okay. And then we always start our Maryland State Arts Council public meetings with grounding documents. The first is our equity and justice statement, and I'm going to read this aloud for accessibility. The arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination, regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. We also have a vision at the State Arts Council, which plays an essential role in ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. And we do that through our mission, which advances the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. And with this, we have strategic goals connected to our strategic plan. Goal 1 is to increase participation. Goal 2, provide intentional support. Goal 3, build capacity. Goal 4, leverage connections. And Goal 5, bolster Maryland arts. And today is really centered around Goal 2, and that's providing intentional support to you all. Additionally, we start our meetings with creative meeting actions. I'm going to read these aloud as well. Celebrate being in the space with other creative people. Engage with everyone's presence as a gift. Acknowledge that together we know a lot. Enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry. Share your idea and trust that it will be heard. Use I statements. Focus your language on the task at hand. hold one another accountable with care, apply yes and I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it, and balance speaking and listening. Additionally, we do encourage that folks avoid using the use of pronouns in our public meetings, and please introduce yourself by name when you're speaking and refer to each other by name during the meeting. Okay. Additionally, we want to highlight our professional development series. Many of you know about the professional development in our emails that go out every week about the significant amount of professional development that we're doing at the State Arts Council these days. These are a few examples on the screen where we have topic-specific interactions. We've got creative conversations, networking sessions, and our regional arts summit. Right now, we're in the middle of a continuation of our Regional Arts Summit. We have an Aesthetic Perspectives series that's happening right now. Many of you, I know, have joined those sessions. There are 2 more that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I really encourage you all to take a look at those offerings. And just to kind of round things out for FY21, we had over 10,000 participants attending over 280 different professional development offerings, and there's plenty more that are happening in FY22. Okay. And right now, just to highlight that we always encourage folks to join us as a panelist. We rely on you and the public as a diverse array of constituents across the state to really do the important work of evaluating applications. As you all know, panelists are involved with the Grants for Organization process as well. Some of you may have served or you might be serving this year. It's a really important piece. So keep that in the back of your head. If you see a call for panelists that come up, we really encourage you to get involved with that, to really dive a little bit deeper into the process of our grants programs, whether it's the Gfo program or any other program. And thanks, Laura, for being a panelist right now for our creativity program. And I'm so glad you're having a good experience with that. So each time that you're a panelist, there's a public call that goes out. Training and support is provided by the staff. It includes reviewing and scoring applications in connection to a rubric. And there's required attendance for any public panel meetings, and compensation is provided for your service as well. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Laura to get us started with the GFO application.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. And it's so wonderful to see so many faces here today. Thank you for spending your Friday lunchtime with us to talk about the GFO application. So today we're really focused on the off-year application, which is what you all should be in. You're in an off year this year. We're going to review the program and the guidelines. We're going to talk a bit about the application process and the timeline of that. We'll go through the application questions and also talk about the financials that are required with this year's application. And then we'll hold some time for questions and answers at the end. So you are, I think, probably all very familiar with the GFO program at this point, but just as kind of a starting off point, the purpose of the program is really to provide operating support that strengthens and sustains Maryland's arts infrastructure. So this is the general operating program. For FY22, the current year that we are in, we awarded just under $16 million in GFO support. For the applications, you all as off-year applicants this year, you are looking towards the December 15th deadline. So in just a little less than a month, that's your deadline. If you were in an on-year, your application would have been due this week. It was due just a couple of days ago on November the 15th. And just something to kind of pull out so that you can maybe mark it on your calendars for future years. These are always the dates for on years and off years. So every single year, on year is due on November the 15th. Despite, it doesn't matter if it's a weekend, weekday, it's always November 15th. Off year is always December the 15th and always at 5 p.m. for all of those. So, like we said, if you're here today, you are in an off year. So that means that you are a returning applicant. You have gone through the on year process in one way or another. At some point, you are a part of the program. So you are a returning applicant that's been accepted into the GFO program. If you were a new applicant, you would have needed to submit an intent to apply application back in September and go through that process. None of you need to do that if you are in an off year, but that's just kind of an FYI, just so you know the process, or you could possibly pass that along to other organizations. So the GFO program, I think most of you are pretty familiar with this, but this does get a little bit complicated. So just to break down exactly the structure and the cycle of it. So the GFO program has a 3-year cycle by artistic discipline. During your on year, we use that term, on year, that means that you would complete a full application process in that on year. That includes being reviewed by a panel that determines your panel score, which then moves forward for the coming years to determine your funding. During your off years, which is what you're in here, your organization completes a shorter application that is really just an update to that full application. So it's just a brief, application, much shorter process, much shorter narrative, all of that than the on year. So this year, looking forward in this application process, we're looking forward to FY23 funding. The on years for FY23 is our music C category, our dance category, and multidiscipline A category. So those organizations completed an application that they submitted earlier this week. They're going through the whole process. You all would fall into one of these other categories. So you're in an off year for FY23, but just looking forward so you can plan mentally what you're looking for in the coming years. FY24, so that means this time next year, theater, service, folk and traditional, and multidiscipline B will be completing their on-year application. For the FY25 cycle, so 2 years from now, this time 2 years from now, music, literary, and visual and media arts will be completing their on year. And then we cycle back around for FY26, and it's the same ones that are this year, and that's music C, dance, and multidiscipline A. If you have any questions about where you fall, what does multidiscipline A versus B or any of that mean, we're happy to help you with that. We're happy to help determine which category you're in. And it's also important to point out that, so this is the discipline cycle, but at any time, you are also able to request to be put into an on year. So if you went through an on year, say last year, and maybe you thought that your score should be higher, or you've done something new and you know that your score can get higher at this point, you're able to request to go into an on year at any point. It's up to you to do that. And the score would be reflective. So if for some reason your score goes down in that requested year, that's what you would be going with, is that score. But you are at any time able to request to go into an on year. So that's just an option to keep in the back of your mind as well. So looking at the GFO funding formula for FY23, it's important to note that there's no changes to the funding formula for FY23. You probably have heard by now that we have announced the changes to the funding formula. That will take place starting in FY24. If you don't know about that announcement, or if you need more information about it, that was announced back in October. There was an info session that we hosted, and there's a link on our website to that information. And of course, Emily and I are happy to talk to you about that as well. But for the FY23 funding formula, it's the same formula that's been used for the past couple of years. And that takes your total allowable income times your panel score percentage, and that is determined through that last on-year application review process. So you do not have a new panel score this year. It's the one that you're carrying forward. And you multiply that by our cap allocation percentage, which is the same amount for all organizations. It's the percentage of the total MSAT GFO budget that we allocate to every single organization. So when you multiply all of that together, you get your FY23 grant amount. So just to put some numbers to that, if your total allowable income was $500,000 and you scored a 90%, and our cap allocation was 7%, which it's usually somewhere around there, your grant would come to a total of $31,500. And just to break this down a little bit more, so like I said, the off year does not include a full panel review. There's no extension assignments, so you don't have those site visits, you don't have those in-depth conversations. None of that happens on the off year. That only happens on the on year. So the application in your off year is reviewed and not scored by MSAC staff, which is myself and Emily, and not by a panel. So your panel score carries forward from your last completed on-year review. So that's just an important thing. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, in terms of what is carrying forward, what changes. Your panel score is only determined during your on-year process. Here is just a breakdown of what to kind of expect in the next year, really, almost. So right now we are at the point where applications, they've been open for quite a few weeks now in Smart Simple. You should be taking a look at those. Hopefully you're starting to complete those, enter your financials, all of that fun stuff. All of that is due within Smart Simple on December the 15th at 5 o'clock p.m. You must click submit by 5 o'clock p.m. on the 15th. From there, throughout the winter and the early part of the spring, that's the time when Emily and myself, we are going through those off-year applications and we're going through all of the financials. We're making notes. If we have any follow-up questions or anything like that, we're coming to you during that period. In May and June, the recommendations for funding are made to the council by the staff, and the grant amounts are determined based on our budget. After July 1st of the year, so once we move into officially FY23, that's when the notifications of grants are sent via Smart Simple. That usually happens, I would say, by about mid-July or so. And then just throughout that entire process, because it is a really lengthy process, this is not one of our monthly reviews or anything like that. It really takes the bulk of the year to go through the whole process. We're here to answer questions. We're here to provide any support, whether that's technical support with Smart Simple, whether that's looking at financials, anything that we can do to help make the process easier. We are here to help with you. We can talk one-on-one. We're happy to meet with your staff, your board, anything like that. And of course, we love to go to events too. So let us know if there's anything coming up at your organization that we should know about. And two other important dates to just mark on the calendar. And just like the application deadlines, these dates never change. They're the same every single year. So you can just put them, a recurring event on your Google Calendar or whatever works for you. The interim report is always due on January the 31st. And the final report is always due on August the 15th. And both of those are completed in Smart Simple. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Emily to walk through the application.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laura. I'll make another note just to go back to the reporting in Smart Simple, just as a reminder that the reports will show up automatically for you in Smart Simple. So once you have your award for the year and your contract is finalized, it's going to populate for you. So you'll always have access to those reports throughout the year in Smart Simple if you need them for reference or you want to plan ahead, whatever you need to do. So just wanted to note that while I was thinking about it. But moving forward into the off-year application, as Laura mentioned, this is the shorter version of the GFO application. So it involves the contact information for your organization and your the person that's connected to your organization. There's the brief narrative and activities chart, financials, which may or may not include attachments this year, and your authorized signature. So moving forward into the narrative section, this is really section A of the on-year application. So the on-year is the full application has 4 different narrative sections, A through D. So for the off year, it's the same, but you're only completing section A. So these are the questions that you'll be completing. So question 1 is, what are the mission, vision, goals, and or values for your organization? 2 is, how have the mission, vision, goals, and or values of the organization evolved over the last 2 years? 3 is, what is the geographic area of service for your organization? So here we're looking for specific communities you're serving, counties, cities, statewide. And this response, as it is in the on-year application, is used throughout to get a better understanding of what you're providing in the application itself as a guidepost. Additionally, this year, 3B is new. So with thinking about your geographic area of service, we're asking that you identify a percentage of programming that's serving the community other than tuition paying constituents. And we've identified tuition paying to include programming with a fee for service model, such as camps, classes, workshops. So this would not include, an event that might have a fee or a ticket price. This would be something where it would be closed to the public, for example, or for a very specific group of people that would not necessarily be outside of open to the community and open to the public. So it's just another indicator that we're looking for this year at the State Arts Council. Moving forward, the last part of the narrative section is the chart, which many of you are used to completing. This has changed over the years a couple of times, but this year we've shifted again a little bit. But what we're looking for is your upcoming programming. So this would be for FY23, so starting July of 22 all the way through June of 23. You'll be listing your arts activities within the chart, and then there's the complementing columns that go connect to each activity that you're providing. So what we're looking for is how does each activity connect to the vision, mission, goals, and values of your organization, which you've identified in A1. Describe the public value or the importance or relevance of the activity for the constituents in your geographic area of service. The third one is, how is each arts activity designed to reach yet to be known constituents in your geographic area of service? And then the new piece, again, kind of tying back to the tuition-based question, if your arts activity is tuition-based, how does that activity reach beyond the tuition-paying constituents? And if it's an activity that's not tuition-based, you can just list NA for not applicable. Okay. Before we get into the financials, any questions on, excuse me, section A, the narrative pieces?
I do. Oh, sorry. I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Maisie.
I'm Maisie Lynch. So, and maybe this kind of applies to all of us, actually. You know, we're still in the process of transitioning from virtual to in-person for a lot of stuff. So I'm having a big challenge getting in, and we're trying to get space for next year. And a lot of places are not opening to the public still, not willing to commit to that. So how do you suggest that we, put in an application for the programming for next year with some of those unknowns and uncertainties that we're dealing with?
Sure.
And I'm talking about non-tuition based. Like last summer, we went out to camps and we played, the kids went out to camps. But like I'm having the worst problem with locations right now. So.
Sure. No, that's we've got that question a lot already for the on your application too. We ask that you present what you know or what you might be planning, and we understand that there might be some shifts there too. So in particular, in the activities chart, our recommendation, and this is pandemic year or non-pandemic year too, to put your activities or think of them in terms of kind of buckets of programming. So for example, if you're doing educational programming for youth, you don't need to list every single activity for that educational programming that might be happening, but you might want to just list the one line that says educational programming for youth, and then answer the other questions appropriately. Similarly, for theater organizations that you might have, your main stage season, you don't need to list every single performance, but list it under main stage season. And similar for arts, visual arts organizations, your exhibition series, might have 4 to 6 different exhibitions. You can just list those kind of in buckets. And we also know that dates might change too. It's okay to leave the dates off. You don't need to necessarily include that information. We just kind of want to have an idea of what you're planning ahead for, and that they can connect to these 4 different questions within the chart. I hope that helps answer. Okay. Shelley.
Hi, everybody. Could we go back to 3B? I just want to make sure I got that. So the first level here is if you're doing free programming, that would be included here. But then I think you said if you're doing free targeted programs. So we're doing some programs with our youth centers here in Gaithersburg. They're not going to pay anything. We are going to pay for them to be engaged in mural making. That goes in there too?
Yep, and Laura, feel free to jump in too. Anything that is considered free would not be tuition paying. A couple of examples, we give the classes and the camps and that kind of fee for service model as the basic example here. But if it's something that's open to the public, open to the community, that's not necessarily a tuition paying piece of programming for you all. It's really thinking about something that might be that's paid, like a paid fee for service, paid classes, but it would be closed and maybe not have a community or a public component to it. So that's why we use that kind of the summer camp, for example, that you might be doing a summer camp for 4th and 5th graders, and it's only open to 4th and 5th graders, and they have to pay to attend that, and then there's no public or community component to it. So there's no penalty for having that type of model within your organization. It's perfectly fine. We're just looking for to identify some percentages to move us forward and to have a really good idea of how much community and public programming you all have, and what's open and free to the public as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else to add to that, Laura?
I think that really covers it. I think just to reiterate, it's certainly it's part of an earned income model to have tuition. We're not saying that it's like Emily said, we're not penalizing you for having tuition-based classes or anything like that. That's part of a earned income stream, certainly, but we're just trying to distinguish what is serving beyond small, just those that are paying specifically for perhaps a class or a summer camp or something to that effect. So what is really reaching out into the community and is community facing. And I see in the chat, there looks to be like there is a technical glitch within Smart Simple that is not showing 3D at the moment. I'm unsure of why that is, but we will certainly look into it as soon as we get off this call and see what's going on there. So thank you for those who have pointed that out.
Okay, and Laura, I see that you have a question. Laura Malkus, do we have you still? Maybe not.
Hey, sorry. Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hello, my friends. A lot of good friends on this call. I'm interested in the and I know you spoke to it a little bit, having to do with the distinguishing between the tuition-based programming and not, in terms of what is community serving. I would just like to throw into the hopper that one thing we have found is that when we offer free programming without a fee, there is a very high no-show rate. And so whereas we may, certainly at Fells Point Corner Theater, we may really want to offer our programming for free, but we understand that we have a higher rate of participation if we charge a nominal fee. And so I just wonder how that impacts the purpose behind the distinguishing the distinguishing factor that you're trying to make, because a lot of our programs really are very community based, and we'd like to make them free, but more people actually show up if we make them not free. So just throwing that in the hopper for the conversation.
Great, and thanks for that, Laura. And there, there is a little bit of a gray area here as well. We do understand that that having a fee or a ticket price is like Laura, we said too, that that's part of earned income streams and like you said, commitment to the programming. And if it's open to the public and open to the community to attend, then it wouldn't be a tuition paying program. So I would recommend if there are any specific questions about specific programs, to reach out to Laura or myself to really go into some further details about that as well. We're happy to talk to you all about that and make some recommendations. Okay.
I just want to bring up a question that's in the chat real quick, just to vocalize that. A question from Megan about the yet to be known constituencies question, and can we clarify what this means and how important it is? Sure, Megan. So that is actually, let me just move slides so we have it in front of us. So that's really looking at, who are you not reaching yet that you could reach with this programming? How are you reaching out to those that are not coming to it already? So it could be marketing strategies, it could be promotional strategies, partnerships, any of those types of things that how you are really engaging with those that aren't currently a part of the audience or the group that you're serving right now. How are you reaching them? That's really what we're looking for there. Emily, anything else you would add to that?
No, but I think you've got it.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Because the way that the question, this is why it's like very confusing to me. The way that this question is written, it seems to suggest that like, how is each arts activity designed to reach yet to be known constituents? Sounds like a different question than like, how are you trying to reach yet to be known constituents? So I guess every time I go to answer this, I'm very confused by it. So I don't know. It's helpful to know that what you're actually looking for is like, what are ways that you're trying to reach other people?
Yeah, and that's a great distinguishing and something certainly we can take into advisement as well. I guess I would say that it could also be that the activity itself is specifically designed to reach a certain constituency or reaching a group that is not currently served. So I guess I would say it's a little both and, with that, you might specifically decide to, go after a certain type of programming or a certain show or a certain concert or whatever it is, because it is, looking to reach that yet to be known constituency. So I guess I would probably address it as a both and kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that too, that a lot of times we'll see within this question ways that organizations have identified partnerships or collaborations within this. So again, to Laura's point, if you've identified that you would like to expand your service to youth, for example, and you have not done that before, but you said, you hear that that's something that you want to do and you want to expand your reach to reach youth under the age of 18, you may design a program and collaborate or partner with another organization or somebody who's already serving youth under the age of 18. So
Right.
kind of thinking about those examples of how you might design or collaborate together to reach those in that yet to be known area.
But always good feedback, Megan. Thank you. We can always work to help clarify things. And
Great. And I see Nancy's hand too.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, but it's back to this tuition-based question. I'm a little confused about whether the emphasis is on, is it open to everybody versus do the attendees have to pay? So if we provide a tuition-free concert, a concert where you don't have to pay for a ticket, but it's for a specific population, does that count or it doesn't count?
so I guess I would approach it, and I hope that I'm understanding the question, Nancy, and we can certainly talk further about any specifics. But I think that if it was, if let's say there was a class that a theater was offering, for example, a class specifically for middle school students, and those middle school students had to, their families had to pay tuition to participate in that class. And there was perhaps a, performance at the end of it, but the only people that are attending that performance are the family members of those that took the class. So, it might be a free performance, but it is only, the moms, dads, sisters, brothers, et cetera, of those that are in the class. It's an insular kind of group, so that it's not really open to the community. So that I would say is one of those instances where it would not be open to the full community. I hope that makes sense.
So if I may ask about a specific example, I have two specific examples. One is if our orchestra gives a concert in a local school, it's not open to the public, right? Because it's for children who attend that school, but we don't charge anything for it. So does that count as a non-tuition based activity?
I would think so, because it's the orchestra that's playing, correct? It's not tuition paying students that are paying.
We're an orchestra. That's our arts organization. Right. We play in the symphony orchestra.
Right.
So we're providing this for free for a particular public school.
Correct. Yeah. So I would say that would be open then. It would be a different scenario if it was a tuition paying class. That was the orchestra that was then playing for a specific grouping of people. But Nancy, we can look at specifics offline. I just want to be mindful of time, but I'm happy to go through any specifics with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, everybody. This has been really good conversation, and it helps Laura and I too, like Laura said, to have the feedback and the questions so we can help clarify as well. So thank you for that. Let's go ahead and move us forward to the financial section. So we've gone through the narrative piece, and every year we ask for financials. So this year, it is the second year that we're providing an option for financials. So in the ongoing response to the state of emergency due to the pandemic, returning organizations have the option to use financials from your most recent completed fiscal year. So that would be FY21 if you're on a traditional fiscal year, or calendar year 20. Or I know a few of you might have some different fiscal years. So however your most recent fiscal year end date is. So you can use your most recent, or you can choose to use the financial information again that you included in your FY22 application. So when you're going into the financial table and your financial section of the application, you're going to see it drop down to give you those two choices. So if you have any questions about what to choose or what financials to look at, please let Laura and I know, because with some of you had chosen the same, might have chosen to use the previous year. So you might be looking at a couple different years of financials to find your allowable income. Whichever one is higher is what you're going to be looking for. So again, you have the two choices, and with either selection that you choose, you'll still need to complete the financial table with your FY21 or calendar year 20 financials. So if you've selected to reuse the financials from last year's application, the financial table will only be used for the economic impact data collection, and it will not impact your final grant amount. But we do want to see what your FY21 financials look like for that data collection purpose. If you selected to use the financials from your last completed fiscal year, the financial tables, the financial information included in the table will be used for your grant determination. So you would need to provide your audit or a P&L statement to back up that information. So I know it can get a little bit complicated, but you have two choices. So whatever is in last year's or your most recently completed fiscal year. Okay. And moving ahead here, if you've selected to use your FY21 or calendar year 20 financials, you must attach that financial statement, as I mentioned, with the corresponding information. So that would either be if your total allowable income is under $600,000, you would just need to submit a financial statement that shows your income and expenses, such as a profit and loss statement. And that would need to be signed by a professional accountant for the organization or a fiscal officer, somebody that is authorized to sign a financial document for your organization. And it must be submitted at the same time as the application deadline, so on December 15th. If your total allowable income is over $600,000, we'll be looking for an audit, your audited financials from an independent external auditor. So that completed audit must be submitted at the time of the application as well. So again, if you're choosing to use your most recently completed fiscal year FY21 or calendar year 20 statements, you must attach a financial statement to this year's application. But if you're choosing to reuse from last year, you do not need to attach because we've already approved those in the previous year. Okay.
I have a quick question. This is Marshall Clark, Access Art. So
Hi.
if we use the FY22 application budget that we submitted before and just use that, we would base that off of the audit that was based on. Then we can assume that then any grant that we get would be the same as the grant that we're getting this year, I would assume, more or less.
Not necessarily, Marshall. That's an excellent question. So going back to the formula, we would use the same allowable income number. So if you choose to reuse and say say it's $1 million is your allowable income, and we reuse that $1 million again, and because you're in an off year, your panel score will stay the same. So say it's 90%, the 90% will carry through. The variable that does change year after year is our cap allocation percentage. So in our example earlier, we used 7%, which is applied to every single organization. However, because our budget changes, our cap allocation may change. So we have different, allowable incomes that come in from every single organization. We've got folks coming in an on year, then their panel scores change. Everything kind of changes based on the amount of applications and the full pool. So that's the variable that will change this year. It might be very close, but it will likely change because the cap allocation changes every year.
Okay. And then if we were going to submit our new financials for FY21, which our year ends June 30th, 2021, we would need to link that to an audit if over 600,000 and less than 600,000, just a P&L signed by a financial person.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think Maisie, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I got a little confused now. So I thought at first that nothing changes except the cap allocation in an off year. But what I'm hearing is that our budget if we earned more this year, so we can use the last applications, but if there's more, then we can submit that financial data, and that would potentially increase our award based on our budget. Is that right?
Potentially, yes. So if you chose to submit your most recently completed fiscal year, so FY21 and calendar year 20, and not reuse previous year, so your allowable income number would change in the formula. Your panel score would not. The cap allocation would also change. So you have two variables that would change.
Yeah.
So even if your allowable income goes up, that does increase your chances for your grant award to go up. But we don't know what the cap allocation looks like. So depending on those variables, it may or may not go up. If the cap allocation goes down, we're not sure. But
my other question, and this is just sort of like to minimize anxiety for the next couple of years. I think that it sounds like this is specific to COVID, and that's why you guys have been doing this, because budgets, everything's been a mess. So will there be like an opportunity, let's say next year, to just kind of skip the last fiscal year so that we're not like, at some point, is that going to catch up to us that we made less income because of COVID?
We're not sure what next year looks like. Honestly, we're kind of taking it year by year right now. We're hoping to get back to a point where you have we don't have the choices, and we get back to how the program was originally set up, and that is the last completed fiscal year statement rather than the choice of reusing. So we'll see what happens. We're not really sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Dana.
Yes, I had a quick question kind of following up from Marshall's question, or I guess really everyone's. When we submitted, we had the financials for FY19. And so in theory, I would like for us to, update it to FY21. But we would fall in the over 600,000 and do not yet have the audit completed for FY21. The most recent one we have will be for FY20. So I'm just trying to figure out and get some clarity on which financials we should be submitting.
Yeah, I mean, technically we need the finalized audit by the December 15th deadline. So it might be one of those things that if you don't have one, if it's not ready by that time, then you might need to reuse from FY19. But let's talk offline what that looks like and where you're projecting to go, Dana, and what your schedule is looking like there, and we can kind of talk through what that looks like.
Okay, great.
And any other questions I missed in the chat? It looks like they're answered there. Okay. This is just a friendly reminder. As Laura mentioned in the timeline section too, we are both open to provide feedback, to answer questions, to jump on a call, anything to help provide additional assistance. We offer this in the on-year and the off-year applications if you'd like us to review any of your narrative questions, your financials. As I mentioned to Dana, if you want to talk about what your financials look like and maybe what your allowable income number might look like in comparison to, reusing versus this year, we're happy to have those conversations. As a reminder for the off-year application, it is Laura and I that are reviewing it. It's not a scored application this year. So it really is just to make sure that we've got really good information as an update. But again, we're happy to provide feedback. We do ask for about 10 business days for written feedback on this application because it's such a big application. So as we approach the December 15th deadline, if you could just give us a heads up or provide any information that you'd like us to look at by December 1st, that's really helpful for us and our workload to make sure that we can get everybody's questions answered in an appropriate amount of time. Okay, I think that might be it. Any other final questions, comments, feedback? Okay. Laura, anything else that you want to add?
I was just going to say that we have recorded this session today, so probably early next week we will get this also uploaded to the website. We'll share out as well via email, so that way you have access to the recording and to the slides, just for reference. If there's anything that you missed, or if you need to share it with, a board member or something like that, somebody who's helping you with the application, you can do so. But hopefully this helped to just kind of walk through the process. The GFO program is a huge one. It's our biggest program. So there's lots of nuances, lots of terms and technicalities around a lot of different things. So we hope that this was helpful to kind of demystify that process a little bit.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. We appreciate you and taking the time at your lunch hour to join us. Certainly hope you all have a wonderful holiday season ahead, starting next week, it looks like. So take care. Have a good afternoon. Have a good weekend.